Welcome to our channel, Behind My Story. Please like, share and subscribe.
Looking back, I realized that I was raised in a very strange world. At the center of that world was my mother, who was single, addicted to heroin, and, at least to me, the best mom in the world. Every day there would be a moment where she would tell me, "I'll be there in a second," before disappearing into her bedroom with a few of her friends and locking the door. As a 7-year-old, I would stand by that locked door for ages, trying to imagine what was happening on the other side. It took me years to finally figure out what they were doing in there. For a long time, I assumed that adults were having some sort of a power nap. They emerged from that room so quiet, so relaxed, and so cheerful. I felt like I was missing out because even after nights that I had had a full night's sleep, I was still tired. I wanted to be an explorer when I grew up, which I knew would require lots of energy. My mother had an enormous amount of love to give, and most of it went to me. We would play together every day, for hours. We would dream up adventures together. I was Link, she was Zelda, and our mission was to defeat the evil demon that lived around the corner from our home in Western Austria. First, we had to secure a map so we could locate the demon and destroy him. If my mother became too tired for our mission, she had to drink a potion made from poppy pods to regain her strength. My mom usually had a bunch of her friends over at her place, like Werner, who told me that he drew his energy from nature and trees. Werner always told me about the glory days of the Austria Football Club, while my mother's boyfriend, Adam, taught me to play chess when I was 6 years old. He'd learned to play during a stint in prison. Probably the only straight-faced lie my mother ever told me was that my dad had died in a car accident before I was born. Only years later, when she and Adam were clean, did they explain that my biological father had died of a heroin overdose. After a few months in prison for possession, he had taken his usual dose, but his tolerance had fallen while he was inside, and it proved to be too much. In her grief, my pregnant mother considered suicide, but a book she read convinced her that she would be reincarnated as the lowest form of life if she did so. At school, I was a bit of a problem child, rude and badly behaved. Though that was basically the norm when I grew up. We lived in a big green ground floor apartment in an apartment block. We didn't trust anyone who bothered knocking on the main door since only the police or the postman did so. For me, they were the same thing. Everyone just clambered over the balcony and walked directly into our living room. A frequent visitor was my mother's dealer, who was called the Greek. Once, while my mom was in her bedroom, the Greek forced me to drink a shot with him. I was only 7 at the time. When my mother found out, she kicked him out of the house. But as she would later explain to me, everyone deserves a second chance. So she eventually let him come back. In the summer of 1999, when I was 8, my mother was really struggling with her drug use. Adam seemed near death after 23 years of addiction, and I was slowly beginning to understand what was going on around me. My mother had convinced herself that it was fine to take drugs until I was old enough to figure out what she was doing. But obviously, the truth was, she just couldn't stop. One day that same year, her old friend Mike came to visit. He had been in prison with Adam for smuggling. It was like he was a completely different person. He wasn't tired, dizzy, or nervous. He radiated a joy and peace that immediately made my mother cry. Mike comforted her and spoke about how he had healed and was set free. His presence alone lit up our dark apartment. It was like someone was shining a torch in a pitch-black cave. Adam kicked him out of the apartment before smashing up some furniture and screaming that he didn't want anything to do with Mike. But Mike came back to explain again how he had freed himself from addiction. Sometime after that, my mom and Adam came to see Mike's new life as a good thing. And the realization helped them both. Dozens of attempts to get clean had previously failed. After doctors, psychologists, and social workers had insisted that the strength to get off drugs had to come from within, a strength that neither of them believed they had. But now their friend Mike had made it out thanks to his inner strength, and that gave Adam and my mother hope to do the same. My stepfather got clean after more than 2 decades as an addict, while my mother beat a deep depression that had taken her to the verge of suicide on several occasions. They had felt emptiness, sadness, and despair, but now they were filled with love and security. Unfortunately, not everyone around them was as lucky. Many of their friends died as a result of their addiction. At just 39 years old, my mother died of cancer. Throughout her life, she defeated monsters and demons, all the while showing the people close to her an unbelievable amount of love. In the middle of the drug swamp I grew up in, I had a beautiful childhood, and for that, I have her alone to thank.
Hi there. My name is Sharon, and I'm 20 years old. I'm studying aviation engineering. I lived with a friend near our college because we were going to college out of state. We all know that everyone encounters bizarre situations in their lives. Some are unintended. They just happen due to silly behavior, while others are completely unexpected. Such is the story I wish to tell you today. My story starts when I met Henry. He was just charming. I think he tried to hint me off several times, but being the clueless girl I am, I missed all the subtle clues until one day, as I was standing with my friends chatting, he surprised me with a marriage proposal. I was thrilled and shocked at the same time, and I said yes. The wedding was to take place a month later, barely enough time for the families to gather and all the preparations. Come to think of it, I didn't know much about Henry's family, though. He selected a nearby island for the wedding. My friends helped me choose a wedding dress and prepare the wedding invitations and the reception. Soon, the day arrived. Mom was wearing an elegant dress, brimming with happiness. I put on my wedding dress and went to find a beautiful yacht waiting for me. Henry's father was waiting for us. He was such a kind man. We were chatting and laughing all the way to the island. When we arrived, I was shown to a small building to prepare myself. I hadn't seen Henry since the boat trip. A little while later, they told me that the ceremony was about to start. Henry's father escorted me down the aisle and gave me away to Henry. Henry was so handsome, in his formal attire, but there was something off about him. Couldn't quite put my finger on it at the time. He gave me a big smile. It seemed that he had gained weight and a bit of height. I thought in all the happiness I must be a bit delusional. It was probably just my overexcited imagination. We stood face to face, and it started. When he got to the part where he said, "If there are any who object to this marriage, speak now or forever hold your peace," suddenly I heard Henry's voice behind me. "I object." I looked behind me, and there stood Henry. But he was right in front of me, too. I looked back and forth between the two, with an abrupt look of confusion on my face. The Henry in front of me looked at the one far away and said, "Took you long enough." Then he looked at me and said, "That is Henry. I'm his twin brother, Andrew. Nice to meet you." I'll never forget that moment. Apparently, that was Andrew's idea of a practical joke. Can't say it was the perfect wedding day, but it's definitely one I'll never forget. Some people live their lives not fully appreciating what others do for them. They start taking things for granted, thinking that that's exactly how it's supposed to be. Parents sacrifice a lot for their children, and when the children appreciate and try their best in life, that would be worth more than any words can ever describe. My name is Megan, and I hope to inspire you with my story. I lived with my father and my sister Marlene after the death of my mother, who died from an illness. Though I was only 18 at the time, I became responsible for taking care of the whole family. I did everything for them: cooking, cleaning, washing. My father was a great man, and he did his best to make us happy. I supported both my sister and my father. We faced everything together. There was one more person in my life, my neighbor, Dave. We practically grew up together, and our dreams grew with us. He knew everything about our circumstances and supported me often. He proposed to me and we got engaged. Dave chose a flat near my family so we would be close to them. That was very thoughtful of him. We got married and started our lives. I was determined to finish college, and Dave helped me in every way that he could. He proved to me every day how responsible and considerate he was. One day, while cleaning the house, my heart started beating rapidly, and I couldn't breathe well. I was barely able to call out to Dave, who came immediately when he heard me cry for help. I had had this symptom before, when I was younger, but I never told my father, because I didn't want to worry him. Dave took me to the hospital, where a doctor said that I had a serious heart condition. And not just that, I was pregnant too. Pregnancy and a heart condition do not make a good combination, so we had to choose between the baby's life and mine. My father and Dave asked me to abort the child. Though they tried really hard to persuade me, I resolutely refused. I agonized a lot during my pregnancy. They were all so worried for my safety. My father and Marlene left their flat to come and live with me, and Dave cut back on his working hours to stay with me. When the day came, they took me to the hospital. The doctor checked the condition and said that it was too serious, that I wouldn't be able to survive the childbirth. My family and I were shocked. I held Dave's hand and told him that I was strong enough to make it. Dave hugged me and cried. I was so afraid, but I did my best to hide it. I said to my baby, "I'm trying the best I can. I'm fighting so that both of us could have a life. Know that I love you, and I know that you'll grow up to be very successful, but you'll also be caring and kind."